I was born in Detroit. I was born in a musical family. My mother was a singer, writer, dancer. She even played conga drums too, which was great. My dad was a tap dancer. At any rate, we were being trained to be in show business. And my sister, my brothers, Martin and Lonnie, and myself. Now, my sister, she couldn't dance and couldn't sing. It's weird how that happens. When my other brothers, they were into it. And we were born at 426 Hendry Street. Never forget that. I mean, in that place you could kind of keep your door open, talk to your neighbors, no problems. I wouldn't try that today. At any rate, we were in rehearsals all the time. And my mother would have a lot of entertainers come by, a lot of singers and dancers, and we'd have to perform for them. We'd work out our routines, and they would look at us and see how we did, and would applaud and all that. It was great. And she was grooming us for contests. And one of the main places we were headed for was the Apollo in New York. Now, the Apollo in New York had the amateur show going there that was fantastic. And everybody in the black neighborhood, for sure, all over the country knew about the Apollo. Now, my mother was performing in New York, and she knew the guy who ran the amateur shows at the Apollo. I think his name was Cooper. So he put us on. Now, what we had to do was get there early enough and get us a spot, because he was kind of slipping us in. That was good. When we arrived at the Apollo, we had to go in through the artist entrance, which was on 126th Street. And we'd go into this back door, and it was crowded. I mean, it was like people going up and down the stairs, and there was people all over the place. And but the guy was kind of slipping us in, so we had to get to the backstage area. At any rate, we're standing there. My mom is there, my brothers and I, and the show is on. Now, next to me was this guy standing. He had on some huge shoes. He had on this crazy looking outfit, makeup on, over 6 feet tall, and he had this stalk in his hand, looked like a hook, like a hook. And very frightening looking guy. And the show is on, and this girl is singing, and she's terrible. Every other note, you can make you cringe. All of a sudden, the guy steps out on the stage with the hook, whips this hook around the girl, does a stupid dance as he pulls her off the stage. The audience goes crazy. They loving it. My brother's scared. I'm frightened. And my mother says, don't worry about it. The hook won't get you. This was called, I think it was called the Sandman. And he would pull all the bad acts right off the stage, right in front of the audience. Now, we're scared to death. Guess what? We're next. We go out on the stage. My little brother, who had this great voice, very, very, very afraid, we're singing the song, and he has a solo spot that he does in the song. We sang in a Mills Brothers tune called B.I. Bumble, B.I. Not. I like honey an awful lot. Okay, so it gets to one point where he says, you're as sweet as honey too. That's the reason I love you. Now, when he gets to his part, he dropped down on his knees, put his hands together like he was praying, and he said, you're as sweet as honey too. That's the reason I love you. And the audience goes insane. We win the contest. Can you believe that? Well, from that point on, we were the hottest things in the city. And that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
We were kids, very little kids, and we became the winning singing group of 3 states, Ohio, Illinois, and Michigan. So as little kids, we were going to doing amateur shows And then they would call us in other cities, and we just thought we was.
You know, everything that I learned to do, the basic part of this was the things that my mother taught me when I was a kid. I mean, it all came back. You know, how you study and you work at things and you spend time at it, and you gotta, you can't get results unless you do. And it was a long lesson, but a wonderful lesson. And she was more than just my mom. She was my friend and everything. I mean, it was great with her. And her talent was just unbelievable. Even today, they sent, I got some product that she did in Europe that they sent me that I didn't even know she had sang these tunes and wrote these tunes. And it's just a joy hearing that. And I know it was very difficult for me when she passed. I remember her being in the hospital, and she had cancer in those days. When they found cancer, they just cut that off. Whatever they had, it amputated. They had no cures working. At any rate, she was there, and they had worked on her 2 or 3 times, and we were all visiting her. And she got so weak till she couldn't talk. She either had to blink her eyes or something. I know we were there visiting, and it was time to leave. And just before that, she was trying to ring the bell to call the nurse. And she was stretching her fingers, and she couldn't quite make it. So I reached over, and I pressed the button for her, and she smiled. The nurse came in. Of course, she had to go to the bathroom. And they brought her back and put her in the bed, and everybody started saying their goodbyes. And I'm standing there thinking, I said, wow, what if she has to do something else? Who's going to push the button? So what I did was, I was about 13 at that time or something, when everybody left, I got under the bed and I stayed there. They turned out the lights. It was real quiet in her room. And then I came out from under the bed and I looked at her and I grabbed her hand, and she looked at me and I saw the smile in her eyes. And I couldn't do anything. I just held onto her hand, and I immediately went back under the bed because I didn't want her to see me crying. And whenever she needed something, I would come out and check, and I would press the button and go back. And I know when she passed, I couldn't go to the funeral or nothing. It was it. I felt like the world had come to an end. Very difficult for me to get over that. But all the things she taught me, it all came back. And yeah.